Hi everyone. So I'm recording this video at an unusual time. It is currently just gone 10 o'clock at night here. I usually tend to record videos more in the sort of mid-late afternoon. So I generally tend to record them between 3 and 6 p.m. generally. But I've been sitting at home alone for the evening, just watching TV, chatting to a few friends over text and so on, and there's been a particular thing going around in my mind, and I just thought it was worth coming on and just recording this to see how it works, really. And I suppose that's the main purpose of what I'm going to try to do here today. So what I've been thinking about is the problem of solving problems. It's one of these things that you're never really taught. You just kind of have to learn it as you grow up, and I think that's a fairly substantial part of the problem. So the problem of solving problems, in my experience, is that there's very rarely a direct solution to a problem. In general, what you've got is a trade-off. You've got to sacrifice one thing in order to make something else work better. You've got to make one thing or a couple of things worse in order to make another few things better. And in essence, all you can really do is hope that in the aggregate you're creating an overall better outcome. And so the problem with solving problems is that very few people understand that. And so people are always looking for this quick fix. They're always looking for something that will just be the silver bullet that just solves the problem outright. And it just doesn't exist in almost every single case. Perfect example is vaccines. It's a very currently hot topic within the media, although most of the media are completely ignoring some of the stuff that's showing how badly some people are suffering as a result of the vaccines. But even with the current vaccine aside, older vaccines for other things have had similar outcomes. Some people have incredibly bad reactions to it. Some people have incredibly bad reactions to all sorts of medicine. In some situations, they can come to a hospital, to a doctor with a pretty minor ailment, be prescribed a medicine that helps almost everyone else, but could severely damage or even potentially kill them. And so, a vaccine is never a one-size-fits-all solution. It just can't be. A medicine isn't a one-size-fits-all solution because it just can't be. I'm one of those people that I try to avoid taking any sort of prescription medicine at all unless I absolutely need to. But when I do, I try to take it as little as possible because it is, to me, whichever way you want to look at it, to me it's still a foreign element being introduced to your body that has only really been devised to be introduced into your body in the last maybe as little as 10, 15, 20 years ago at the most. So for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years of human history, didn't have those things. Now, I'm not going to try to pretend that modern medicine hasn't dramatically improved the lives of most people, because it has. And if I was ever suffering from something fairly serious where, modern medicines and so on would provide me with a distinct advantage, I wouldn't be personally against them. I do get the feeling and the I really find it quite strange to accept blindly that this medicine that has been created in a lab is definitely going to be good for you short, medium, and long term. And I can't think of a single person I know who takes prescription medicine regularly who is actually healthy. Now, I know there's a slight juxtaposition there in that, well, they wouldn't be having to take prescription medicine if they weren't healthy, but what I mean is that they've essentially been kind of painted into a position where they now can't really live their lives without continual prescription medication. And to me, that seems fairly ludicrous a situation to find yourself in, and it's one that I would do it almost anything I could to avoid finding myself in. But obviously the problem that they're trying to solve there is to fix pain, is to reduce the chances of something getting worse within your system. But there are all sorts of trade-offs. If you take a prescription medicine all the time, it has an impact on you. I knew someone for a long time who had been on an extremely high dosage of codeine for long periods, and it had effectively started to eat away her stomach lining. But she needed it to manage the pain. Now, without going too far into the story, the pain was predominantly caused by a surgery that was done to her. So trying to fix one problem or a couple of problems simply led on to other ones. It didn't turn a bad thing into a good thing. It didn't cut the issue off. Didn't just make it dead. It didn't render the problem solved and happy ever after therefore continued. It doesn't happen like that. It doesn't happen like that in almost any part of life. You know, how many people have broken up from a relationship with someone who they really think, this is horrible, I really don't enjoy being in this situation, and then they meet a new person who they romantically believe is going to be some wonderful, different, and happily ever after person, to then discover a few months down the line that a lot of the things and a lot of the problems and a lot of the stuff that they didn't like about the other person is also present in this person, and a lot of the things they couldn't solve and a lot of the issues that they already had themselves that they brought from their old relationship into their new one has just precipitated basically the same situation taking place. I think that the real problem with the idea of problem solving is the thinking that we're just one little thing, we're one solution away from having all the problems solved. And it's just never going to happen. I personally have been around through, I would say probably in my lifetime there's been probably at least 10, I would say, approximately 10 general elections I've seen in my lifetime. And in some of them, the party that I felt was the better option won, and all the problems didn't go away. The outcomes weren't perfect. There wasn't happily ever after. Life is a continual and endless problem-solving activity, because because that's the essence of life. That's the thing that I think too few people understand, and too few people can get their heads around, that one of the great things about life, one of the things that makes life so amazing and such an adventure in its own right, is that you just don't ever know what's around the next corner, and there's always going to be another challenge in front of you. There's always going to be another problem put before you. And I think we romanticize this idea of having the happily ever after, but it is nothing more than where it most often happens, and that is in fairy tales. Life isn't happily ever after. It never is. I heard someone say once that they'd probably rather not go to heaven because it would probably be boring. And although I know I can, there's all sorts of ways you could pull that apart, but the principle of what they were trying to say, I think, is relevant here, and that being that there is a sense that if you go to a paradise where there's no more pain, no more suffering, no more problems, that probably very quickly becomes pretty damn dull. And I can understand that. I feel that it's intrinsic to the human experience, our ingenuity, the thing that gives us our spark, the thing that makes us human, is our ability to solve problems better than almost any other creature in the world can. And when you look at it overall, better than any other creature in the world can. Overall, almost every single problem we encounter, we're able to find some kind of way to improve it. Almost every other creature on this planet has to just put up with problems against which they suffer. They don't innovate. They don't find new solutions. They don't come up with new ideas. But that is precisely what we do. And that is the one thing that makes us dramatically different. And so the problem with problem solving is that we as people require continual problems in order to feel like we are alive, that we have a purpose, that we have a reason, that there is even any sense to what we're doing if we're not trying to solve a problem. And I know that it's quite easy to see how that could be perceived as a bit depressing, a bit kind of defeatist, a bit like, oh, so we're just on this kind of treadmill of constant pain, the constant necessity to overcome issues and problems. And to some degrees, yes, we are, but I think the real thing that will define life and define your life is how you choose to approach that, the attitude with which you go about it. If you go about it with the intention to find happily ever after, you'll be eternally disappointed. If you go at it with the intention of, this is part of life and I'm going to make the best of it that I can, then the chances are you'll spend most of your time happy. And I'm going to leave it there for tonight. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so that you do get told when we've got new videos up. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, and follow our Patreon page as well. All of the links are in the bio. I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Good night.